So good evening, this is the Littleton Community Preservation Committee meeting of February 21st. We are, just a reminder that we are being recorded and this will be available on LCTV's on-demand site. So just be advised that anything you say will be recorded. Yeah, I print one for myself. News and mail, I have no mail. Do we have any news? The only thing I did want to, well, I guess a member update. We've talked about this recently and I just noticed on I was looking at the coalition website and we talked about taking money from one bucket to another. And we said, well, if we go to a town meeting, we can do that. I don't think we can. It says any money remaining in a category reserve at the end stays there. We know that. Once funds are transferred to a category reserve, which we call a bucket, they cannot be transferred out and spent for a different purpose. So we do have to.
For different category.
Different category, yeah, which I don't know, we were always under the impression that if you went to town meeting and requested a transfer to a different bucket, we could do that, but just from this, it doesn't sound
But
like.
there is an undesignated bucket. Right?
Yes,
So why,
Yeah.
if that's the case, why would you ever?
Maybe it's your money.
bucket?
Maybe it's your money.
well, that's the argument too, a lot of people
Right,
say,
but
you
you
put it
wait
all.
until you need it though, and
Right.
then, yeah.
But from one of our last meetings, we haven't been very aggressive with the undesignated bucket.
No, we always, and even before I was here, they like to budget it to a project category, just so like historic, you would know,
Right.
you have, so much money to
Which makes
use.
sense, but at the same time, if you can't swap it around. then
Right.
It seems like you're tying your hands.
I
around
like the
it.
undesignated bucket because then you do have
More
some
and more.
flexibility with all the buckets.
Yeah.
But isn't there some minimums that you have to put in the bucket?
10%.
10%, okay,
Which isn't a lot.
Yeah.
Really.
okay.
So I don't know, maybe we do have to rethink our allocations after reading that.
Hi, everybody. Oh, sorry, kind of jumped in
Hi,
here.
Andrew.
Hey, everybody. So I was just going to say in the past, yes, we had been pretty firm about providing fixed amounts for the various buckets. And I think that was just so that we wouldn't have different categories competing against each other. We knew that Park and Rec needed this amount of money. We know that open space needed this much. And it gave that assurance to each category that they would be funded, whereas leaving, a good chunk of undesignated, somebody could come in and maybe take the whole show and
Right.
not fund other projects. But I do think, it is smart to have a sizable chunk in undesignated, but I think the way that we currently fund the projects or fund the categories gives each category that assurance. Historical knows they have a good chunk, recreation. And I think that's why in the past we've kind of stuck to that. But yeah, we can always kind of rethink our processes moving forward.
Yeah, even like with the state match, like what we've been doing the last couple of years is putting a lot of that into undesignated, but maybe we just do the categories at the minimum and put the rest in. Of course, the state match was a lot lower last year than it had been, but I don't think we've ever had an issue either. I don't ever remember saying, oh geez, I wish we had that pot of gold that's, whoever, the open space, I guess, has the pot of gold. But I just happened to come in, I know we've talked about it a lot, so I thought, well, we'll report on that. The other thing, and we've talked about this sometimes, is the maintenance, talking about the definition of maintenance, like, I think it came up with the basketball courts, if you're resurfacing basketball courts, why is that not considered a maintenance project? Which you can't do, so there's actually a definition. They're talking, this is same thing, fencing around a tennis courts was the example. And they're saying that So if the fencing needed repairs, it would be considered maintenance. If the fence needs to be replaced entirely, it would likely be okay as a capital improvement. So not allowable is maintenance, incidental repairs which neither materially add to the value of the property nor appreciably prolong the property's life, but keeps the property in a condition of fitness, efficiency, or readiness. Allowable is a capital improvement. Reconstruction or alteration of real property that materially adds to the value of the real property, or appreciably, the opposite, appreciably prolongs the useful life of the real property. Two, becomes part of the real property or is permanently affixed to the real property so that removal would cause material damage to the property or article itself. And three, is intended to become a permanent installation or is intended to remain there for an indefinite period of time.
So in terms of housing, that would make handicap ramps or widening doors for handicap purposes or bathroom renovations allowable.
Right, replacement of, we've been talking about like windows, you know, if you had to replace windows and things like that, so. We'll have to chew on that, but I thought that was interesting to see it.
That's
I'll-
on the CPA.
Yeah, I'll email those out, just
Yeah,
to
that-
have them in your
that's good,
back
so we can-
pocket, so.
Think about that.
A couple things that we talked about lately. Beginning to check to see if anybody. wants to
I have
come in.
news item. We're
Mhm.
there.
Yep,
There's something called, CPTC, which is a organization that trains municipal, people like us on our boards and committees. And they had their annual conference at Holy Cross on March 16th. And a lot of it's planning, related. There are a few, and I just want to mention it if any of you would, I've been to one, it was pretty interesting. For instance, they have, planning for historic preservation, moving from reactive to proactive, which caught my eye. It's smart growth, community planning for solar. There's about 20 different things. There's 3 sessions. It's possible you can be reimbursed. I know the planning board reimburses if we choose to attend. But anyway, I'll pass this around. You can take a look at it.
I just signed up to them.
I'm surprised we haven't heard of them.
yeah, no, especially with the historic preservation. Yeah, I've never. Well, thank you for the information, it's been. Does anyone else have any inputs?
Did I say last time that I was gonna come with an eligibility request for housing?
Yes, but you're also gonna be on the agenda in March too. I left it on here so that we could talk about it, but, March is gonna. We'll just make it, because I think the warrant closes like on the 25th and we'll meet on the 20th, so. I think we'll have a lot of people there.
I was up by Jerky Farm the other day and they were cleaning out the barn.
Oh, you saw them, okay, good.
Yep, yeah, there were windows in a truck and trailer.
Right. There was a lot of stuff in there. And then highway department's gotten, put plywood over all the doors and windows.
All right, so we have some guests here tonight from the Clean Lakes Committee. John Folsom is here. He just sent out the eligibility requests and some paperwork, which I did put on the flash. I printed it. If I have extra copies of people in the audience, I'd like them too, because we don't have a full board here. There are, the one on top is Linda's, historic markers. We'll do that afterwards. There are 3. Yeah, absolutely. Those are extras. So,
Thank you.
there are 3 eligibility requests altogether. And John, I don't know if you want to talk about them.
Sure.
And I do have those. Might not be used.
If you want to go any specific one, but they're both. Hello,
I would suggest you talk about the most expensive one first.
that would be a fine place up there. They're all lake-based, so 3 separate lakes. The first one would be Avalon Lake. And it pertains to our eco harvesting of invasive plants that are in the water. They're in water invasives. And then we have fibrous floating islands that are new, not unusual. Sometimes we get some sort of floating mass that just comes and goes. But this floating island is about 40 feet long and 15 feet wide. So we were going to have that removed this summer or this fall, if at all possible. And we need funding for that. Oh, there's a picture of it. This has come from beneath from the bottom of the lake, rises up. It's decaying matter, and it's floating at this point. On some sort of gases or something or other, and this has been lodged in a lily pad growth there, so it's kind of choking off the lily pads, and it's become a real eyesore. And we are afraid you can't stand on it. It's definitely floating. You would get drenched if you stood on it, but we'd like to have that removed before it becomes somewhat permanent somehow. And then the eco harvesting is a technique that we just started last year, where rather there's the eco harvester, the machine itself, rather than herbicide treatments, which we have used for some 20 years at Long Lake. We started last year with this harvesting equipment that has a big drum in the front and literally draws out, runs over the weeds, draws them up a conveyor belt and stores them, and then they're removed and composted. So there's actually a use for them rather than cluttering up the lake. And so we'd like to continue with that program, but our funding system is completely crumbled this year. Actually started 2 years ago, and it's been sort of a long process getting ahead of things. We used to be funded by cell tower funds that were on Spectacle Pond land. And the state 2 years ago said that this can't be done. That is actually part of the water department enterprise, and as such is based on expenses that they incur and has to be used for topics that or for functions that pertain to acquiring clean drinking water for the town of Littleton, which is everything to do with ratepayers, and we can't get in the way of that any longer. This was set up many years ago by Sabastanos, and we were sort of self-funded for a long time by that. Now the water department is contributing about half of our annual budget because it's related to spec pond and issues that have to do with the aquifer below spec pond and that area. Long Lake is not anywhere part of that. It's an entirely different watershed. It's Suasco. And so we come asking, well, directed actually by the select board to inquire for funding from you. This last picture here is one of the excavators that we hope to use to employ. It's an amphibious excavating machine that will dig out those floating islands.
Are they connected to the bottom?
They're held by the roots of the lily pads, and it's just I've never seen it before. These are usually literally floating, but they seem to have come up from beneath the lily pads, and it's immense. It was suppressed a little bit by the ice this winter, and I was kind of had my fingers crossed that they would just go subsurface. We won't have to worry about it again. But that is not the case. It's come right back up again, and it looks like it's quite happy and continuing right where it is. There's like a ship moored there.
Yeah. Does it stay? So it stays in that one place?
Stays right in
Yeah.
that one place,
Sure.
and I think it will be bigger and healthier this year. So this is a problem. We've been told by some of the companies that we've employed in the past, that the annual use of herbicides can lead to, this kind of decaying matter, that accumulates on the bottom of the lake, and then as it decays, kind of bubbles up, with gases and things. Sounds nasty, but we still love swimming there.
You just don't look at it. No, it was,
It's substantial, it's like a foot thick or so. And, they tried to take them out with Echo Harvester last year, but they were just too, heavy, too dense. We had some on, Forge Pond last year, Lake Matawanaki, that Echo Harvesters tried to take out, and it broke the machine. It was out for the rest of the week. So they're pretty substantial.
when you pull it out, will it come back? Is this something?
No, it's gone.
It's gone
It's,
now.
but it may or may not be the end of what we see, floating down. But again, this is an anomaly. We've never seen anything with this large, and there's a couple of others that are accompanying this that are just offshore. And they're about 10 or 15 feet long, but this 40-footer is nuts. So, it's definitely disappointing an awful lot of people around the lake, and becoming an impediment to navigation as well. So.
Well, our last meeting, we were educated on Phragmites,
Ladies, yeah.
which I'd never heard of before.
Oh, it's
And,
all over.
we approved, or at least we endorsed, funds for that. Have you talked to the Conservation Commission about it? Do they have any experience with this, or?
We have not.
Okay.
This is brand new, and of course, you're the first group we're meeting with. But we have.
Well, they may just have knowledge or perspective on it. So anyway, this is interesting. I mean, the way you described it, it almost sounds like a science fiction thing.
So, so Jeff, we have worked with Clean Lakes on bodies of water like Lake Matawanaki. Dave can attest to all the work that's been done over on that. But yeah, so this would require permitting from the Concom ultimately, and we'd be happy to work with Clean Lakes to get this done. It's a really critical project for the health of the lake. So yeah.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So because this just came in, I just read it really quickly just now.
Understood.
So, the 27,000 versus the 50,000, could you explain that a little
Sure.
bit more?
27,000 is the cost for the eco harvesting that we just carried that over from last year. Their first pass was 27,000. So we're kind of hoping it's at least equal. With the eco harvester, they claim that as the annual treatments are done, it actually begins to sort of reduce the amount of excess growth that you have. So we're hoping no more than that. And then the $50,000 would be for the removal of these ridiculous islands, which means amphibious equipment and hauling and trucking, and we're not even sure of a destination for disposal. So again, we have a number of questions ourselves, but we thought $50,000 would be adequate to address that.
So the eco harvesting will remove the pond weeds.
Mhm.
But then the heavy equipment does something else?
Heavy equipment is dedicated specifically to the islands.
I see.
So this is kind of two projects in one, basically, but
I see.
Yes,
yeah, okay,
I gang things by lakes.
by lakes, right? Understood.
So where you say you don't know how to even dispose of this yet, is this 50,000 just your estimate, or is it, have you got the actual quotes of?
Talking
Let's do
to
that.
people at the water department, and we have not gotten actual quotes. By the time we got to discussing this, it was pretty close to winter, and we had ice conditions, and it's easier to assess in the springtime. I'm sure that we have 2 or 3 companies that will be considering putting bids on this. So we'll get with them as quickly as possible and hone in on a number. Our whole bidding process, you always go with the lowest bidder, of course, for the town. Sometimes it works really well, and sometimes not so much, but, this is, our hope is to hone in on a number very quickly.
Would you also consider removing some of those other smaller ones so that they don't grow into this?
There's a group of 3 that are right there, that are new, and anchored by lily pads. We'd like to scoop those right out. So do a thorough job when the equipment's in there.
There's a compost operation at Springdale Farm
Mhm.
now. You might wanna call.
We've actually taken some of the harvested material
Okay,
there from Matawanaki.
I mean, it might save money on trucking and,
Yeah, that was a
It's
good.
becoming a bigger and bigger issue all the time.
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
So you sort of called this big one an anomaly.
I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, so you don't really expect this to happen every year or?
Again, we had such an unusual year last year. We started the eco harvesting program at Spec Pond 2 years ago. As sort of a demonstration project to see how it would go, because ordinarily we've used herbicides. Just to knock weeds down and keep things clear. We would rather use this eco harvesting system on all of our lakes and ponds because it removes material rather than adding to the nutrient level of the lake. And the more aggressively we can attack that sort of nutrient sump, the better the lake, the better for the health. This affects the dissolved oxygen. It affects the wildlife. It affects the other native plants that can't survive and get pushed aside by these invasives. So again, last summer, I don't know if it was the weather. We've had a drought going in from the winter. There was very little snow melt. The spring was drought, which reversed itself and became just a washout in the summertime. July, I think, rained most days. Pretty disastrous. This somehow led to a profusion of in-lake weeds at Matawanaki and Spec Pond. Long Lake was not so bad, but we got these sort of muck islands instead. So, we're going, what, talk about science fiction. We don't know what this year has in store. And that's kind of a wild card, but we hope that it was an anomaly and we don't anticipate seeing these things on a regular basis.
now, if it were small, like the size of the card table, could you go and pull it out, or is it?
We have, Leon Weaver, one of our reps from Spectacle Pond, has wrestled with these in the past. And disposal has always been sort of like, push it where you can't see it. But he said they're thick and buoyant, but they're saturated. And it's kind of a fibrous material, looks like roots almost, and you can kind of hack at it with a machete, but you just have to sort of work on the edges. And he said he'd volunteer to help on this for $25 an hour. I think it would take a few seasons.
Yeah, absolutely, yes, sir.
So, we have started to see some of these in Lake Matawanaki this year. We've never seen them before. Last year was a year that people have lived on their lake all their lives. We've never seen anything like this. Mostly in terms of the amount of plant growth that was just showed up.
Yeah.
But we've also seen these kinds of floating bogs. And in our case, I think they might be coming from Lake Matawanaki case, coming from the Beaver Brook wetland, which is the main tributary into Lake Matawanaki. This last summer, Westford replaced 2 large 8-foot culverts that go under Beaver Brook Road with a bridge. And it seemed likely that these same kind of floating things, but they're not that big. They're like 4 or 5 feet across. Some of them are 3 foot across, this sort of size. are coming from the wetlands. These wetlands, grow tufts of plants, and, you can see kind of, runs of water between them. And if the water, rises a lot, they can, float, and then they can get pulled up and probably go downstream. Previously, they couldn't get in the lake because they couldn't get past the culverts, and now with the bridge there, they can. There are about half a dozen of them right now at the outlet to the lake, piled up against, there's an Abbott Mill Dam, at the outlet, and there's half a dozen of them, lined up against the crest of the dam. The water's low because, a drawdown is done every year to try to control the plants. But they're too heavy they're hundreds of pounds, probably 1,000 pounds apiece. We are talking to Westford about their DPW going in with like backhoes to remove them. That's, what we're exploring right now to get those out of there. But they're very large. They've got, I think, 2 sources probably, but, there's something that, the whole process is, what they call eutrophication, where lakes, slowly die. On their own, they die over 1,000, 10,000 years. When you've got, populations around them and, development and such, it can take 100 years. And it's quite accelerated. And it looks like, the fear is, what we saw last year might not just go away this year. It might be kind of a ratcheting up. We don't know. We'll have to see.
So if the ones in Long Lake, if the lilies weren't there, they would just be floating around somewhere?
Yes.
Okay. And I want to go back to your, your funding from the water department.
Mhm.
So what are you getting from the water department for this?
We're getting $157,000, I think,
Okay.
to address problems at Spec Pond, and engineering studies at, Lake Manawanaki. A few other things, some surveys and so on.
Staying like that one.
Because most of the cell towers are located on, they're associated with, the stand, the water tanks. And it sort of bothers me, because those were located there to support conservation. And Andrew, have you guys dealt with this at all on Conscom, or do you have any insight into this?
So in terms of the cell tower money, previously, like towers like Oak Hill had produced, funds for maintenance, land acquisition. And then a few years ago, DOR approached the town and essentially said that we could no longer keep the cell tower monies in a separate account for those purposes. So it's kind of led to a problem in terms of, where is this money going when it's coming in, and what purposes can it be used for? So we're currently trying to address that, whether it's special legislation to create an account to specifically put that money in, for those purposes. But as of right now, yeah, it's a little messy, and hopefully we can resolve it soon. But yeah, it would be ideal to use it for land acquisition and those purposes.
Yes.
Any other questions, Sam, anything? So tonight it's eligibility, so we just have to determine, whether we feel it's eligible, or if there's anything we want to take back, that they take back an answer, or,
I guess maybe my question is the open space the right category? Might it be recreation?
yeah, that's a good question.
Category question.
Well, the lakes are a resource for the town.
We were advised to head towards open space in that regard. And that in as much as we're concerned about conservation land and almost 2/3 of the shoreline is conservation land, at Long Lake, there certainly would be, an open space issue.
Preserving open space. Was that Amy Green that pointed you in that direction? Um,
We don't have a
So we get eligibility and then which category to pick it on?
right,
What about, where does undesignated fall there? Or-
well, there is that too, I mean, if we wanted to keep the open space and just pull it out of the undesignated, which,
I think
Put it in between.
that's, possible. I mean, I think open space recreation, it doesn't, I mean, it's possible, but it doesn't quite align with what I think people have in their minds for that money. Open space, people look at that as acquiring land.
right,
Recreation, people look at it as building playing fields. So do we have enough undesignated money to consider this?
we would,
How much
yes,
is in there?
well. Good question.
It's a floating number.
Yeah, yeah, it's as murky as
Annual
this.
report.
I don't think
Oh,
I put,
I think I have. it.
It's not, yeah. it's
no,
not-
because I didn't dare, because I don't quite know, yeah,
Oh,
and I
really?
didn't really
Oh, you
know.
put a percent.
Yeah, I just put the,
Oh, okay.
so we might have like 380,000 in undesignated at the end of. I should mention, I have a meeting with Michelle on Monday to go over the finances, so I'll have a better idea of it then, but. We may have, $400,000 in the undesignated fund by the end of the year.
I think I agree with Jeff. Maybe we should put this in undesignated. Those sort of fall between the cracks.
I would agree with that too. I think for the most part, open space, I mean, we have used it for, land acquisition and invasive species. I mean, we mentioned the Phragmites a little earlier. Although this is a very important project for the town in terms of the health of our water bodies, which it's all linked together ultimately in terms of open space. But if we could use undesignated, I think that would be a great avenue.
Undesignated isn't an allowed use. We could use undesignated money, but it would have to be
Right.
called. open space.
Right, we'd have to
Transfer.
transfer it to open space and then use it.
Uh,
I think it's how we've done it before.
But I think that would maybe get over possible objections at town meeting about the use.
That's
of-
not
Yeah,
depriving playing
Right.
fields of anything.
Right.
yeah.
So I would leave it as open space on your project and it would just be how,
We were wondering.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
The way things are moving in the town. The lakes are certainly an ecological issue,
right,
so it's not really recreation, exclusively. And all of our activities, pertain to the health of the lakes.
Yeah.
As opposed to just accommodating swimmers or boaters or something like that.
Yeah.
And maybe we're carving out a new section of open space, it's the water.
right.
Because it's a limited resource that we have and we're trying to care for. And it's tough to acquire more of it. It's not there.
Right, yeah, you can't acquire more land, water. Yeah, leave it as open space and we'll figure out the accounting on our end and we can do some research in the meantime to see, but I think that's the way to do it too. to get from-
Well, I make a motion to approve this eligibility request.
I second it.
We'll take a roll call vote since Andrew is remote. Jerry,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Carolyn is a yes. Jeff?
yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
And Andrew?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right, so you can go forward with that one.
Thank you.
One down. All
And we're ripping it, right?
right, yeah. Which
Next
one
one I have is the Mill Pond Public Boat Launch Access Path. This is under recreation. This is a boat launch that was built, I think it was about 2014, by the CLC. And as a public access point for Mill Pond in preparations for the Mill Pond restoration. Mill Pond restoration was a failed project, but this was a success in that there were no other points where there were boat launches or any other way for the public to get into the lake except to lean over the bridge on between Basin 1 and Basin 2. This boat launch is on in Basin 1. If you're familiar with Mill Pond, there are maybe 6 different basins, some of which are almost inaccessible. But this is a little spot that we've got 3 parking spaces. Kids are enjoying their ice hockey this time of year, but there's the path that you can see on that photograph there comes tumbling down about an 8-foot rise between the shoreline and the parking lot. And when it was built, the budget and the site constraints generated a result that was, well, in my opinion, too steep, dangerously steep for its purpose. The original plan we've got there, Carolyn, and that just a second ago. Original plan called for sort of a serpentine walk that would sort of negotiate that slope a little bit better than it did, or better than it does. And our proposal would be to alter that access way, the pathway. Everything else is great. There's 3 parking spaces that are just off the street and a nice landing down the bottom that's concrete and is putting up with the ice very well. It's really accessible. But if in this photo, for example, the pathway, rather than going sort of straight up towards the kiosk, if it was to veer left and then head up in a big arc, it would substantially reduce the slope and make it easier to move with a kayak or a canoe from the parking area down to the boat launch area. Even for people to come down and fish or just sort of sit around, we could redistribute those large rocks and have those for seating and kind of just a little bit of improvement in the landscape to sort of maintain that sort of feeling. And I think it would be enjoyed, certainly being enjoyed now, but it would be enjoyed even more if it was a safer access. And we've got a request for sorry, just buried it, $77,000 on that.
So the description says
Oh,
20.
I'm sorry, I've got
Yeah,
a
I think
mistake
you
on
just-
this.
yeah,
Is that an error, the 77?
I'm running through all these different, the
Yes.
paperwork today, that didn't get changed out. I'm sorry, it's 20,000. I thought I was on the wrong page, and here I'm looking at my typo.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's good.
So I believe the paperwork beyond the form reflects that.
The back says.
Yeah, that resolution.
So we or you should correct the front
I
side.
will certainly correct it immediately, but sorry about that. It's yes, $20,000. And so again, a recreation request, an improvement on what was built due to budget restrictions, and I think they just felt there was a tree in the way.
Yeah.
But I think after years of sort of putting up with this the way it is, we could certainly enjoy, everyone would enjoy improving it and making it that much nicer for the people who can use it.
You have a neighbor.
You know, I'm on Lake Warren, I'm in the house that's just off the right. edge.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
And he was going, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, It's an exceedingly uncomfortable path.
Yeah, they're treacherous, and I can't imagine doing it with a kayak in hand or a
Yeah.
canoe on your head or anything, so, I was very disappointed when that was done.
But my other comment would be, we just went through an open space and recreation plan that we have to do every 6 or 7 years to get grant funding. And we had some public hearings and there were, or workshops. There were several people at those workshops who talked about the water bodies in town and the access. So one of the ones that came up is Fort Pond, which apparently we do have some kind of physical lines on a paper access to, but there's no actual physical way of.
Yeah, we've never considered, that there's
Well,
actually
this is-
a
well-
public access point.
I'm inviting you to consider it, you know, I know
We'd
you
love
have,
to.
I know you have a lot of stuff to do, but if maybe it becomes, you know, one of your items to work on. Apparently at the end of it's at the end of Omega Way, there's some access to it. And then there was a lot of talk about access to Beaver Brook, you know, this type of access to Beaver Brook, and I don't know if Beaver Brook is in your,
Oh, yeah, yeah, you know, all the streams, are part
because
of.
one of the LD has bought Harley lumber. And, one of the comments was, gee, that would be the perfect place for, you know, a little parking area and, you know, access to Beaver Brook. I'm just saying this, to get it on your.
No, welcome, we
Think
welcome all comments.
about it, I don't know, but those are, you know, that would probably be recreation also. I mean, and you would have, Bartlett is also the, steward of the Mill Hill, which is adjacent to that, so, he's involved in everything that you guys should be.
These are good things to know.
But all I can say is that there was interest, there, you know, were people who, you know, wanted to put some priority on accessing the bodies of water in
For
town.
sure, for sure. It's really great. I mean, we have, Parks and Rec has always claimed, you know, that, the surrounding communities are actually more or better represented at the lake in the summertime because, they really just don't have the facilities we do. And so they're gonna get the memberships there and so on and move on. It's just wonderful. So, we cherish the lakes and each one's unique and has an awful lot to offer. And streams as well. I know Mick Wanzer, takes his little kayak wherever he can.
I've always seen that, you know, like a notice, like a kayak excursion down Beaver Brook, and I've only encountered Beaver Brook on the roads, and I'm thinking, how could you get? I mean, but just assuming it's possible, I don't know.
Well, you have to
That's
come
a
at it
adventure.
from different directions.
Yeah.
It's hard to go all the way through,
Okay,
but you can come from one end, you can come from the other end.
yeah,
We go from our backyard.
wow.
Mm.
And then the other comment I have is that whenever I'm going down across the bridge at Mill Pond, not often, but I see, you know, children fishing, and it just makes me smile. I don't know if is there anything to catch?
Oh, yeah. I don't think there's much there
Okay.
to catch, but, then again, I marvel at the fishermen on Long Lake too, all winter long. It's like a very popular, ice fishing location. And I think there's like one bass in there. Maybe it has a mustache or something, and it takes on and off or something, so everybody thinks, hey, it's the one with a mustache this time.
In the fall, there were, I think, 3 otters living in front of my house.
Oh.
They would just dive down and come
They
up
would
with
have
the fish
fish,
and eat
yeah.
them like a hot dog.
There-
and down.
So there are fish.
They are a blast to watch.
So, I mean, there's plenty of small fish in there.
Yeah, that's good to know.
I was canoeing once, and I saw a turtle as big as a Volkswagen.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Last weekend, there were dozens of fishermen on Lake Matawanaki with their, you know, all their poles. And they were catching a lot. A lot of them were small. There were some like big bass. They catch them, they measure them, they take a picture and they put it back in.
Catch it tomorrow.
Yeah. Is this the only access to Mill Pond?
That is the only public access
The only
point.
public, yeah.
We had that built because, we were trying to, arrange for funding and, working with the Army Corps of Engineers. They said, you know, it has to be publicly accessible. You know, it can't just be for the people that live there and we, so, you know, it's the first move we made towards opening.
So when you said it was a failed project, what does that mean?
The state stakeholders have done 180 degrees on this, and it was in the works for almost 20 years. We went through Afghanistan, we went through recessions, we went through everything, and we were all like, oh, we're patient, you know, we can handle this. But now the stakeholders in the state are actually more anxious to remove dams than clean up the areas that are created by dams. And so they would entertain the notion, if the Mill Pond neighborhood was interested, they'd entertain the notion of actually removing the dam and returning this to where it once was a stream. Of course, they originally started by damming up seasonally and harvesting ice, and then they break down the dam at the end of the season and they farm again, little individual farms and stuff on their properties.
Interesting.
And that was a routine for decades. But eventually the dam was built permanent, and it is the first impoundment from Beaver Brook that comes down from Harvard, and of course it gets all of the silt and so on from the Harvard farms, fertilizer and what have you that runs off. And then, of course, the very fine plant for years and years used to use that to process things, and used to understand actually dump apple cores and things, you know, just shoot right down in the Mill Pond. So it's got years and years and years and years of this sort of accumulation of stuff, and it was a wrestling match for the Army Corps to come up with a scheme that would last their 75-year minimum. And disposing of all of that dredge material was the biggest problem. That we were going to put it in one of the other basins, let it de-water, and then let it be used for soils and stuff. And they just wouldn't see it again. They just assumed, the state would just assume see the dam removed.
And the existing dam was put in with 195.
Right,
Yes.
so it couldn't be taken out. Yeah.
Unless you want to work that uphill battle.
Mhm. Who would be the caretakers of this? Is this be, you know, would be clean, under Clean Lakes, or would the conservation? it's not
Clean
conservation,
Lakes oversees.
Clean Lakes would look at it? Well, any other questions, or? You wanna vote on this one?
Do I have to recuse myself because I'm an agent?
I don't think so, because you're not really making any money or anything off of this.
I'll make a motion that we deem this Mill Pond project eligible for CPC funds, 20,000.
A second.
Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Jerry,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Carolyn, yes, Jeff,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
and Andrew?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, just remind her to change the dollar amount and then we'll continue with that. Not a problem.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. Believe me, I think I'm sure I've done it myself.
Square eyeballs this afternoon.
Yeah. You know, stuff
It
like-
seems like a little layer of leaves or a little layer of snow on there, and you'd be down to the lake in no time.
It's actually interesting. I've been there periodically, and over the years, there's now sort of a switchback that people just ignore that path down
Yeah.
with the pavers, and they just take the little mud trail that goes down alongside, and a little easier to negotiate, but it is quite a bank there, and that 8-foot drop is difficult to negotiate. The third pond is Doleful Pond, and that is a small body of water that's over in the Newtown conservation area, above Newtown Road, really close to Route 2, actually closer to Hadawan Road. And it's a small body of water that doesn't draw much attention, except for the fact that it's periodically infested with water chestnut. And water chestnut's a very aggressive invasive plant that grows in great masses of vegetation and crowds out, well, pretty much everything. It makes it uninhabitable for fish, for amphibians, for boaters, of course. There's no way you can get through that mass of stuff. And it has a barbed nut that it creates. See that little black blob there? The barbs are very sharp, and that nut is full of seeds. Those drop to the bottom of the water, wherever it is, and implant themselves in the mud, and can sustain themselves for 12 years without blooming. So the moment you clear everything out, a couple of years pass, and these things are coming back from other seeds. And our biggest fear, of course, is that they say from time to time, waterfowl will get these little barbed nuts stuck in their feathers, and they can easily take them to another lake. If there's an infestation at another lake, well, then it's really difficult to continue or to contain that as well. So this is an ongoing effort that we have. We check periodically, and we're due for that again. So this is an open space request, and it's addressing this for not much, for a total of $1,600 to get in there and mechanically remove the growth, and then and make sure everything's contained.
How often do you think this would be done?
Every couple of years, we go in and check and make sure that it doesn't get out of control. Delightful little pond.
Is this the one that's at the base of Newtown Hill?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, just adjacent to that community garden.
Years ago, my dog almost drowned in that pond with
Oh, no.
fighting the water chestnuts or whatever.
It's
Yeah.
impassable. It really,
Yeah.
when these things are thriving.
And I'm really happy to know that it's called Doleful Pond. But what name?
I have tried my darndest to find more research on that
Yeah.
and how it's evolved, but I have come up with.
And that's substantially surrounded by conservation land, because with the Smith, or what is the Smith land?
Williams.
Williams land, and then and it's a nice spot.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's strangely tranquil.
Yeah, it's a great spot.
Any questions on this one?
How do you get this stuff out? How do you harvest it?
Just mechanical harvester. It literally has to be pulled out. The guys go in with a machine and dig it all, and then it's hauled away. So there are no herbicides that seem to attack it successfully. No, it's just scooping up.
Any other questions? Or we wanna go through this one?
I knew that we grant eligibility for this project at Doleful Pond.
Second.
All right, roll call vote, Jerry,
Yeah.
Sam,
Yes.
Linda.
Yes.
Carolyn's a yes, Jeff,
Yes.
Bartlett,
Yes.
Andrew.
Yes.
Okay. All right, green light on all of them. So, when you come back to the next meeting, we'll just need the application, you know, maybe another short, we've been through most of this anyways, and like I say, this is a recorded meeting, so people can go out and look at it if they want, so it shouldn't be as painless, but there may be some more questions. But,
Wonderful.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
And if I could just have the two gentlemen that are in the audience before you leave sign in, so we can just put that on the permanent record, that would be wonderful. You had a question, sir?
Yeah, so the next meeting would be where you consider whether, you've decided this time that it qualifies, and the next meeting would be whether you think it's appropriate to fund it.
To fund it, correct,
Okay.
and then it'll go to town meeting in May, and then the residents vote on it from there.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and then the funds are available on July 1st, in the next, well, that's another question we had, if we have funds available. When would these projects start? Is this
The eco harvesting would be sometime in late July,
Okay. that's
maybe
okay.
early August, something like that. And, we could schedule, the other things. And I'm sure the water chestnut removal will be about that same time.
Okay, all right, so that shouldn't be a problem then.
So just to mention, the funding application for the next time is longer, it has different subsections. It has a project description, project goals, project timeline, budget, and project support from other groups.
We're gonna start sharpening. our
Yeah,
pencils
I
here.
know, it's
Children.
a long process, but you've got it, you've got most, good start.
Those are due when?
March 20th will be our next meeting, and if you could get them done, a few days earlier, so we can mull them
Yeah.
over, would be good.
Yeah, probably even better.
Please,
So
yeah,
they're longer.
yeah.
Not a lot longer, but
No,
those, just address those topics.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and if you didn't get funding from this, would you just not be able to do these projects, or is there?
We'd have to go to the select board, but I don't think that under the circumstances where they're trimming $3.5 million from other people's requests, that there'd be any other sources here.
Are there any, there's probably grants, but you probably have to chase those too,
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm not sure that we'd be able to do the turnaround quickly
Quick
enough.
enough, yeah.
We've done grants before with Long Lake and, you have to have everything in place and
Yeah.
everything lined up, and then, there's this delay and,
Yeah.
we would probably be in big trouble. We're wrestling with this now, and I would
Right.
imagine we're gonna be close friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
As things are evolving, but again, brand new territory for us.
Hmm.
And, sorry if, a couple of typos, but.
No,
Other than
no.
that, we are delighted that you are here and you welcome us and, we feel a little odd coming together and, sort of hat in hand and saying, we need funding, but we need funding.
Yeah, there's not, no.
So for like longer range future projects, you do have people that that will search out grants and.
We'll
Do
try
people
for
look at
grants
things
at
you've
every
done there?
chance we get, especially with some of our projects. We're looking at, maybe a new, dock for Spectacle Pond down a couple of years from now. And then, not dock, you're right, split, boat launch, for Spectacle Pond. And then, there's quite a number of things that are coming down the line that could be, supplemented by grants. So, under our circumstances, we got some hustling to do.
Well, thank you for your work.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks very much.
We'll see you next month.
Yes, sir.
So, I'm Rob Brown, 25 Juniper. I'm not a member of Clean Lakes Committee. I moved here in
Thank you.
2021. I'll try to be brief. I appreciate what you did tonight. I appreciate everything that John, Dave, and the other members of CLC have done. I've taken a very active interest in this moving here. I have grandchildren, which is why my wife and I came here. But in the 2 years that I've been here, my experience has seen the many challenges that John and his group have gone through. With regard to the cell tower, you covered many of the topics, quite frankly, and quite frankly, even before John spoke, you started to address issues that are my concern. My trade is accounting, so I'm quite familiar with how you open the meeting with regard to the aspects of what is the definition of maintenance versus capital improvements, extension of life, and those things. That's my forte. But I find myself having been welcomed by this group to understand the complexities of the cell tower funding going away. I've attended the Board of Water Commissioner meetings in which I've experienced with some concern, great appreciation, because quite frankly, as the cell towers funding were removed, they stepped up and they did more than just what I suspect they think they need to, and that they didn't just fund the resources required to do the CLC's request for Spectacle Pond, but they went above and beyond that by some $50,000-$60,000 in the coming year. Funds that are all needed, and funds that, quite frankly, I think CLC would have thought that they had it not been for the removal of the cell tower, one tower taken over the enterprise. So as a resident, I find myself in this somewhat challenging situation that I see dedicated, wonderful people, decades of experience. And I come to different groups and I see the same dedicated, wonderful, thoughtful people. But the alarm bells are going off in my mind with regard to the future years, with regard to funding, some of the questions that you asked, and again, how you went with capital improvements. As much as I hope those muck islands are anomalies, I don't know what the future is going to bring. I don't think any of us do. And what I fear sometimes is that our hope might be dashed, and somebody might remember months from now, or a year from now, or 2 years from now, that says, you know, I thought this was just to be a one-time thing, and yet here you are with requests for these funds that are needed for studies as well as, you know, doing the work are substantial. $77,000 or $50,000 for a 40-foot, you know, takeout. Lakes are much bigger than that. So I'm going to be continually interested, and I'm going to try to find that same reference that you made with regard to what is maintenance, because I'm trying to categorize. I attended the third public meeting of the OSRP.
I've been letting you think I know this guy.
I'm the
Yeah, we talked about it at the time. and-
I'm the not guy.
Yeah,
So I'm concerned because I think if anything, what I suspect is that the water department's going to pertain to funding Spectacle Pond and Long Lake, which I think you probably had determined, you know, discussion, and you'll figure it out whether it's open space or recreation. But I don't think the recreation department as yet is embracing the aspect beyond the town beach and that season. And the reality is, nature grows 365 days a year and can significantly compromise. If the Muck Islands weren't removed, then, and they will be, thanks, you know, should you fund this in your next meeting.
well,
But
the town meeting will vote on this.
Yeah, no,
Just bring it forward.
again, it's a whole sequence, you're
Yeah.
correct, it's a whole sequence.
Yeah.
But I kayak, my wife and I kayak in the area, we, you know, grandchildren out there doing it. But what I've seen is whether it's a Phragmites, they're growing, you know, nature's doing its thing. And it's there, and if you don't get it, I think what you stated, you know, can somebody go in and, you know, and do it manually if it's just like the size of the table in front of you, you know, that sort of thing. You know, Leon's willing to do it, but I will tell you that as you get into that mucky sort of material, that comes with personal danger with regard to, that's how people can get their foot stuck, you know, so I'm all for good solutions by good people, well-intended, et cetera. But one thing that concerns me, and I'll leave you with this thought, is to how the different funding sources, how the different interested parties, whether it's conservation, I know Andrew's, you know, here, or you folks, or the water department, or Clean Lakes Committee, somewhere in there, this very treasured resource, and some of you shared, you know, some favorable comments with regard to seeing the otters and seeing the fish, et cetera. Something that is cherished, that is all over the SRP with regard to how we treasure what makes Littleton unique. I'm concerned with regard to, it's likely now that CLC doesn't have an automated self-funding mechanism, somewhere between the powers that be within this new town for me have to come up with a solution so that when the experience becomes something that shows that we don't deal with it, then it's just gonna be a multiplier with regard to, you can't get the year back if you don't take care of it in the current year. So I thank you for your time, and I thank you for the work that you do.
I
appreciate it.
really appreciate your comments, and to some degree, this is a situation created by apparently a state ruling or law.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
And I'm wondering if there's a way to attack it from that point, to call your representative.
I will tell you that, you know, so yes, I could take that action. I know from witnessing, again, being welcomed by CLC as a resident to listen and follow the bouncing ball. I think they made diligent effort. I know that John and town administrators and different people have met recently. It seems pretty definitive with regard to the DORs to what they did in 2021. It doesn't seem like that's likely to be taken back. Having said that, you don't know until you try. But that is to say that it seems like it was done with intent and purpose, and it exceeds just the application for Littleton. And therefore, I think it's got, you know, a little bit of the rolling ball that trying to push it back uphill might be problematic.
Well, the other way to go through it is to recategorize the cell towers. I don't know, there's gotta be, I mean,
Yeah, I
because
think
this
it's
is.
beyond this discussion. Ken.
I know,
Yeah,
but this fellow is going to
I-
meetings and I
I'm
wanna.
just trying to figure out a solution. I appreciate and thank you for doing what you're doing and your consideration that you give it your future meeting. I appreciate the opportunity to state my concern.
I'd like to add to this discussion that this group is funded primarily by a surtax on the real estate tax in town, and it's currently at 1%. We're allowed to go higher than that, up to 3%. So we have been trying to push that through the select board and FinCom and those people. So that's going to be a recurring issue, and any support that we can get in that direction. I mean, it's
Yeah, if you can, I will tell you that I took time on a Friday afternoon to meet with one of the select board members who goes to the library, met with them, and in fact, he was the one that encouraged me to pay attention to what they're doing, pay attention to what you're doing, reference the 1%, and, you know, he, you know. That does seem like it's a potential mechanism. Should it come to that, hopefully it won't, but. And again, thank you for your time.
All right, thank you very much. We
Can I
appreciate
just
that.
quickly ask, Andrew said that they were looking at ways to possibly, like you said, get beyond the decision. Andrew, can we work with you on that?
I'm sorry, Dave, I didn't quite hear what you'd asked.
I'm asking about having you work on getting the cell tower funds redirected.
Well, you had mentioned that there were efforts underway to see if the decision about the cell towers could somehow be mitigated. Can we work with you on that?
Yeah, we could certainly work together. I know that Concom has discussed it a number of times lately, in terms of revisiting the purposes for the cell tower monies and addressing, you know, where that revenue can actually be put and to keep it dedicated to those purposes. Because as of right now, I don't believe that it's going into an account where it's you know, assured to be used for open space preservation, maintenance, and all those good uses. So yeah, we could certainly you know, bring it back up on the Concom end and you know, see where we can move forward with it. But yeah, it's kind of a mess at the moment, unfortunately, due to these specialized accounts getting thrown out by DOR. But yeah, Dave, we should definitely look into it a little deeper.
All right, yeah, let me talk to you.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right, thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot.
All right, thank you.
Thank you all.
Linda, you had a eligibility project.
Yeah.
For some historic.
So, I think there's at least, or about 18 historic markers in town. Most of them were put in place a long time ago. A number of them are deteriorating. Some of them, at least one of them, you can't even read. Other ones are hard to read. They don't look good. They don't reflect well on the town. This weekend I went and looked at a lot of them, and we're proposing to replace, as I say here, 7 deteriorated markers, that we would replace 5 plaques and 1 concrete base that the plaques are housed in. As I say here, there's precedent for using CPC funds. Several towns in Massachusetts have use CPC funds for this purpose. The markers memorialize important historic places and figures of our history. And specifically, the ones that we're looking to replace in this round would be the meeting house, and I have descriptions of them if you're interested. I can tell you what each of these represent. Meeting house, which is at the town common, the Lawrence Tavern, the Neshoba Praying Indian town. That one is even, I couldn't even find it. It fell down. No one knows what happened to it, so we're gonna replace the base and the marker for that. And I think we would work with the Neshoba Indians on the wording of that if they want to change the wording we had before. The Warren Grist Mill, which is Parley, and the marker there said it was the oldest continuous mill in the country, but of course now it's not continuous because it's no longer in operation. And then I have here the West Schoolhouse. Also, the Porter Road Bridge marker needs either replacing or refurbishing. It's not in good shape. We're looking for, yeah, so that's basically the project.
Questions?
And I'll just add to Linda's explanation, the cost of these markers has just gone through the roof in recent, actually in the last year. Just to replace a sign itself on some of these markers, it's upwards of $500. Years ago, when the quarantine station marker was replaced, it was $900 for a beautiful granite piece with sign installed. And now I know last year we were exploring this and we were looking at anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 to get this done in some instances. So CPC funding would be great, as a tool to get these done, because a lot of them are they're at a point where you can't find them, or they look terrible, and it looks bad for us.
Not that this relates necessarily to this project, but do you have a map of all of the different historical sites in town?
We need to develop a map. I don't know that society has a map of them.
No, just a list on the Historical Society website. If you go like halfway down, it's some about historical markers. It has these markers and some that are on buildings
It's
too.
very nice, the way they did it on the website, on the Historical Society website. They have pictures of each marker and what the marker says. It's very nice what they did, but we definitely should have a map.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
What are you gonna change the wording to on the Warren Grist Mill?
Well, we might just take out continuous, or, we'll have to figure that out.
Or just say
It was-
till
That it's,
2021 or.
Yeah, right. We would say it was until whatever day, it was the longest continuously operating mill, and it closed operation in whatever year Harley closed. If you have any other ideas, let us know.
nothing that he's gonna say publicly.
No,
I can tell by the laugh. of
my
the
imagination falls short.
All right, do we want to move to a vote?
Make a motion to approve this eligibility.
I'll second.
Barton. And Jerry, you second. Jerry,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Carolyn is a yes, Jeff,
Yes.
Bartlett,
Yes.
and Andrew.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you all. Phew, okay, let's see. Those are the only projects that I have received so far. I also had on this Affordable Housing Trust to discuss the action plan, but that's gonna come at the March meeting. You're gonna bring the plan to us then. I left it on just in case there was any discussion we wanted to have. And it kind of dovetails into the next item, which is discussion on the FY 25 budget, including the allocation, which we need to do soon to allocate the 1% surcharge that's collected and the state match that we will get in November. So we do that, both of those at the annual town meeting. The one that we have to think about is the Affordable Housing Trust should come next time with a request for all of your funds to be taken back to the Affordable Housing Trust. And as we know, the Finance Committee, and Jerry can chime in if you'd like, would prefer that you don't come to us until a project, you have a project ready to go. And so then, we have to figure out how what we want to do.
Right, I would like the board to make a decision. I really don't think it matters. One minor concern is that, the money that we have in the housing trust account gets interest. And I'm asking, the financial people or the account people, if the money that's in the allotted buckets at this committee level, if those accounts get any interest or what happens to it.
We do get interest because we are also fund, but I think all the interest gets put into undesignated,
Okay.
basically.
It's over the last 5 or 6 years, it's come out to be, I don't know, $28,000 or $29,000, which is not a huge amount, but,
Not as mixed either.
it's a minor, part of our income, and if we can arrange with upstairs to have something like that, or, for assigned money in the buckets,
Right.
I mean, it would still be available to us and we could make a request and get it.
But it's just not as quickly available, right? Because this has to go,
We'd have to
Go to town
we'd have to
meeting,
have a
whereas
housing trust meeting and then have it this
the money that
meeting.
you have now is readily available, just you have to, your
Right.
board has to vote on it and it's available, is that correct?
Well, we have to go through the magic, get somebody to write a check, but yeah.
Okay, but you don't have to wait for town meeting again, so this does really slow up your process. If it stays in the CPC bucket.
No, I think if say, you just put the 20% that I've been getting, or that we've been getting, in the housing bucket.
Yeah,
Then I think at a meeting here, I could come in with a proposal, an eligibility request, and you could vote it, and. for
And then
a-
it's
for a
not go through
particular
town
project.
yeah, I think it's with
Would it
us,
have to put it down in?
I think if it's if it's in our, because we wouldn't have a fund for you, we just would have the buckets of allocation.
But the money that's gone to them in the past,
In the
has that
past.
gone to town meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so.
But it's just gone to town meeting to put into the Affordable Housing Trust, and I think what Steve is saying, and someone mentioned, I think Mark Rombacher mentioned at your meeting last night, is like for the, if they're gonna buy a piece of property to, put affordable housing up, shouldn't that go through town meeting as that project? Whereas, which you may do anyways, but they wouldn't have to, because that money is already there and it's an eligible idea, and I do understand that.
And if the money, from what you read at the beginning of the meeting, goes into their bucket here, allocated to them, it sounds like it can't go out of that bucket anyway.
Right, it just stays there, right?
It would still be allocated for housing, but it
It
would have to
couldn't.
go through town meeting.
We'd have to go
Which
through.
delay.
But we couldn't decide to take it out of there and put it in open space or
No,
renovation while
no.
it's there, so.
Yeah. It's whether we keep it or if they keep
Yeah,
it.
I'm not
So-
sure, knowing that it doesn't seem to make as much difference.
Except I guess the
Except
thing
this
with,
has to go to town meeting.
right, or they could come to us with a project that is to, buy a house on Mill Road for community
Yeah.
housing, and then that would be a project in and of
Mhm.
itself, rather than just giving them a dump of the money.
So at our last meeting, we established some kind of pot of money for conservation that they could access without,
Right,
in a timely manner.
yeah.
But it was a smaller amount. It was, I think, in the
30,000.
so that they could pay, if
Surveyors.
sites come up, came up, they could pay for surveyors,
So-
appraisals and this and this. They wouldn't have to wait until town meeting. And I mean, it might be appropriate to think of some amount of money that would, accrue to the affordable for the community housing. Not the entire amount, but some amount that would give them some flexibility to, maybe it's just entering into a purchase and sale, before the town meeting. But, we have a couple town meetings, things don't,
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
So that 30,000 is sitting where? That was still sitting,
It's in the conservation bucket.
it's just readily available? to
Yeah,
them?
but it's a project and when you vote in a project, the money just sits there until it's expended.
Okay,
So in this case, we're expending it for a particular purpose. And so
so
they
town
can
meeting
just-
already voted for
Yeah,
that,
they will, yeah.
for the 30,000,
For the
and then it will
30,000,
sit there.
yeah.
Okay.
And
I got it.
she's, and she said it may not even be used,
Mhm.
but it's there.
That makes sense, yeah.
So I guess what we need to decide is will we vote to give the money to the Affordable Housing Trust and let it sit in their bucket? And I know you're doing a much better job now at accounting, and I think that was part of it too, was that, we gave them the money and we had no idea what they were using it for.
Right, I think that was part of it, is just kind of wanting a reckoning of it and what it's for, just as,
Well,
gatekeepers of the finances, not knowing what's.
I mean, also, there's a lot of money in that bucket right now
Mhm.
that you can use
Right.
without going to town meeting.
Right.
And we could take the attitude as, well, yeah, you use that up and then come back and,
Yeah, would you need more than $1 million in 6 months? Because there's always a special town meeting, I mean,
Right, right.
Mhm.
No, I can't imagine
hmm.
that you could legitimately spend $1 million on this. According to town meeting.
I know the finance committee would really be more comfortable if we kept the money in our budget fund for now. I mean, it is our decision ultimately, I think.
I mean, you made a good point. There's a million right there, ready to go at this present time.
Right. So I'm having a hard time making a case that we're desperate for more money. But
Now, if you wanted to come in for like some of the LRAP funds, or, a small amount, like, you're gonna need $6,000 over the next year,
mhm.
you could come in for that, which would, be a specific project that we could
So
fund.
you could fund, you could
I wouldn't have a problem with that,
put our LRAP and all those budgets
right?
as a specific request and get those.
Get that funded, it wouldn't touch your bucket.
yeah, you might decide to husband the money you already have. And, there'll be 20 or whatever amount. Anyway, you
Yeah.
could do it on a project by project basis.
All right, so as long, yeah, I think
Good
if
compromise.
we have a little bit of spending money to do surveys or whatever kind of preliminary thing, I mean, we are gonna looking at right now, exploratory septic pits, and we've got to figure out, on our Durkee Farm property, what are the, what's that site capable of supporting in terms of
Yeah.
septic, so that's short money.
So
Okay, I mean,
does that mean that you'll need to give us an application by at the next meeting for certain
No.
projects? No?
no, I mean, I think that the money that we have is money that we
Okay.
can spend directly.
Yeah,
I mean, go through the purchase.
Okay.
yeah, as long as it's
So-
CP eligible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
But if you wanted
But
to
if I
come to
wanted
us
to
with-
buy another piece of property, then I probably would come before you and say, I need to buy this property, or I need to, pay the developer so much money to, increase the number of affordable units in that project, or something like that. Okay.
Good compromise?
Yep.
Okay. And you mentioned that the land preservation trust, when we were at the finance committee presenting our projects, there were some questions on how that works, like if there's an appraisal, but then we never end up buying the property for whatever reason. They were a little concerned about that, and other towns have done this, and I think Andrew brought it up at the meeting, is that that's kind of the risk you take. You do the appraisal, but we may not ever get it. So I think they were just kind of questioning, if you're using CPA funds for an appraisal, but you don't actually buy the property, is that a good use of CPA funding? But
I'm not sure if the question was much as a good use as it's acceptable. use.
acceptable, yeah, that's a better word,
Yeah.
yes.
Just wanted to make sure that it was,
Yeah, but I think it is, I mean, I kind of looked in the database and it looks like that they are, but we will get back with Big Fred Faulkner had asked.
I mean, if we now own the Durkee farm, if we do all these excavations and find that it's all a wedge, and we can't put any septic system there, that it's completely worthless piece of land, I mean, that would still be a legitimate expense, because we're trying to put
Right.
housing there.
Right,
That would be my
yeah,
interpretation.
I think that was kind of how Andrew and I talked about it that evening, but just to let you know, that's what happened, so.
Yeah, and ideally, we would never, let our funds go to waste. But sometimes, in the
Mhm.
process, if a land purchase doesn't go through, or like Bartlett just mentioned, if housing projects, if they hit ledge and they have to start from scratch at another site, it's a risk that, unfortunately we have to take. And hopefully when we go down that path, we don't waste the CPA funds. So, but you gotta put money up front to get places. So.
I do have another question to ask Stuart Saginaw, so I thought I'd kind of collect a couple questions and send that off. And I mean, that probably would be an easy one for him, because I'm sure he's run across it, because it is an acceptable. You can either have a housing fund or a conservation fund.
yeah, because I think if I understood what he was asking correctly, he was asking you like, who you go to see if it's acceptable. I think he's assuming that these get turned into somewhere in the state and they
Right.
say, yep, that's good, or no, it's not, you gotta put that money back. And
Right.
that's not what happens.
Right. But the Community Preservation Coalition, that kind of
Yeah,
the watchdog,
for
so we could
advice,
ask him,
yeah.
and like I say, I'm sure he's dealt with this. So I have it on a list of questions to ask.
There's new technology, but you can put a septic system
Yeah.
anywhere.
I was gonna say that, there's lots of options, package treatment plants, there's lots
Really
of
nice
things to
porta
do for
potties.
septic.
So do we want to vote in, I'm kind of disappointed that Saul's not here, because we were talking about recreation too, because we're getting, the recreation projects are all getting kind of pushed to us.
So I'm not sure if you got word that I think it was 250,000 that they've been looking for a study for
Oh,
fields. At our last joint meeting with the select board and FinCom kind of wanted to table that in lieu of the Shaker Lane project, not knowing what's gonna happen there yet, because they want to make sure that that field or whatever land is left there would get included in that study, and not knowing if the building is gonna have to be rebuilt, if it's gonna be remodeled, if it's gonna be moved, it might sit differently on that site.
Right.
They just kind of want to know what's gonna happen there first, and then they can evaluate the
And I
properties we
would
have.
also say that there's a proposal for 245 Foster that might be coming forward that has playing fields,
Oh, okay.
or who knows?
Yeah.
I'm just saying that it's all out there.
And I think that the town assessor was going to do an itinerary of all of the town properties, just so that, when they do this assessment and they look, they can see everything that we have and who owns what, and what's not being used. So I don't think they were quite ready for.
So that'll probably be pushed
Yeah.
down, so we
Yeah.
might not need a big bucket.
Yeah, because they aren't gonna have the answer back from the state on whether Shaker Lane's gonna be a new building or rehab in time for this
Okay.
this cycle, so.
So we don't have to really decide. So, last year we did our typical 40% for open space, 20% for community housing and recreation, 18% for historic, and 2% for admin. That was for the 1% surcharge. I think we could cut the admin down to 1%. It was like $9,000, and all we usually use is the 1,700 for the coalition dues. We haven't hardly ever used that money for, you can do it for like surveys and things like that, if the committee decides something needs to be done, we could use it, but we really haven't done that in a long
Is
time.
there a minimum required for admin?
I think you have to put something in, but I think it's like up to 5%.
Up to, okay. Yeah, that's,
So then you have differential percentages for the state match.
Yeah, so 2 years ago, I think we started doing that so that we could fund the undesignated, because we never were funding it, so. The state match, we put 30% into open space, 18% into historic community and recreation, and 16% to undesignated.
And somehow that's risen to $400,000.
Well, the 400 was supposed to be, that was the estimate for the 1% surcharge, which we would collect, and it only ended up being like 390.
No, but I think you said earlier in the meeting that when we asked like, well, what's in the undesignated fund? And it seemed like a
Oh.
large number.
Well, there's, we had in the past put some in, and then like all the extra stuff gets dumped into undesignated, like, prior year taxes, the interest. Mitigation funds, something like that. The administration bucket is supposed to be cleaned out every year and put into undesignated. So that has been building up, but we hadn't really been, consciously putting money into it.
And does the state require the match to have buckets also?
It's
Could
a
it just-
10,
10, 10.
70.
So undesignated makes money by itself.
Yeah, it does, basically. So this is just kind of padding it a little bit. So we can go with the same that we want. We don't see any big, I don't see any big open space projects that are, that we've heard. Andrew, I don't know if you've heard any rumblings of any. Although Steve says we can bond anything. So.
Yeah.
We don't.
I haven't heard of any large land purchases, but that's
Mhm.
always the trouble with open spaces. They can jump out at you
Right.
at any time.
Right. But again, and we have quite a bit of money in there, and then if we bond it or in, grants and things, kind of whittle it down too. So I don't know, personally, I'm comfortable with what we've done. Everybody else wants more in their buckets, but.
I would agree with that. Perhaps with the 1% that we're taking off of admin, maybe giving rec that 1% to fund things like the parking lot. The boat launch for Mill Pond. I think that would be pretty helpful.
So if we did that for this 1% surcharge, we'd have 40% open space, 18% historic, 20% community housing, 21% recreation, and 1% admin.
Okay.
Want to make a motion?
1% is approximately $4,000.
Yeah, and like you say, I looked back and the only thing we spent out of it was the coalition dues, which even if it goes up to a couple thousand, it's not gonna break. And we could always take it out of undesignated for some weird reason. Okay, did somebody make a motion?
I'll make a motion. The bucket allocation as you just read,
Mhm. And for the 1% surcharge.
1%.
I second it.
All right, so that was a motion to allocate the 1% surcharge, and that would be for FY 25. 40% open space, 18 historic, 20% community housing, 21% recreation, and 1% admin. We'll do roll call. Jerry,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Carolyn's a yes, Jeff, Bartlett,
Yes.
and Andrew.
Yes.
Yes, okay, great, thank you. And then, for the 1%, the state match. Do we want to keep it the way we had it? Do we want to give a little more to undesignated?
I would do more to undesignated.
Yeah.
So if we give more to undesignated, we have to take out from other categories.
Right.
Drop it down to 15, and that would be 9% more.
You're saying drop the historic community housing recreation to 15?
Yeah, and that would be nine extra percent.
Yes.
And then, so that would be 25 to undesignated.
I think that's nice round numbers.
Sounds good.
Because in undesignated, it doesn't disappear, it just,
Right,
it's still there.
it's just
Yeah.
more flexible, and especially with the Long Lake project, I mean, that's a big one, and if we take it from there, then it won't. Almost pay for it, well, not quite.
Well, you can use it to augment a bucket that. you know,
Yes.
Like have enough
Even with
money,
money in,
yeah.
right. When Bartlett buys his
and then
6 acres for
buying
affordable
his new
housing.
house.
So do we have a motion for that?
I so move.
Okay. Second. So we have a motion to allocate the estimated state match at 30% for open space, 15% each for historic resources, community housing, recreation, and 25% to the undesignated fund. Jerry,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Carolyn is yes.
Yes.
Jeff, Bartlett, and Andrew.
Yes.
Okay. Let's put it right down. Here's the Jerry, Sam, Linda, Carolyn, Jeff. Bartlett, and Andrew. Okay, all right, great, that's great, that's good to get that out of the way. Projects in the pipeline, we'll see Clean Lakes at our next meeting, we'll see historic, gravestones too.
I don't know, Andrew.
Andrew? gravestones?
Yes,
Okay.
that will be on the next agenda.
Okay. And I don't know about the basketball courts, I'll mention it to Alika and see if she's gonna come forward for that. And we'll make sure it fits our maintenance capital item budget. I sent out some minutes.
Yes, can we talk about, first?
Oh, the annual report.
Annual report.
Yes.
I think it's great, you did a great job, I just have a couple of comments, and you said you might be able to make edits.
I think so,
maybe.
and some people haven't sent theirs in yet,
Oh,
Andrew.
well, then you should be able to make. Yeah, so, I don't know that people have it in front of them, but. The blue box on the left,
Yeah.
so the second paragraph, the first sentence starts, in Littleton, funds are raised through the imposition of a 1% surcharge. The language is correct, but
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't sound right. In fact,
You
It
could
that's-
just
doesn't
say
Doesn't
I
sound
think-
right.
through a 1% church surcharge.
right, through a 1%
Through a,
surcharge, that would be my.
You know what, I took that right from the coalition website.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, that's
but
really
that's funny, the
weird
way
that
you
they
say
use
it now,
that.
it sounds terrible, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so that would be one suggestion. And,
Implementation, but you're not in position.
Yeah.
or I think, but we can make it
Through a-
simple, through
through
a
a.
1% surcharge. You don't
Well,
need
look
to-
at a
yeah.
period at the end.
All right. And then the only other comment I had is under the project name, the
Mhm.
first one, West Lawn Cemetery Conservation Project,
Mhm.
Phase 3. That's correct in terms of, conservation is the term they use in the cemetery world. But in the CPC world, in the historic preservation world, we really need to add either, I would say rehabilitation And in all of our funding applications, we use conservation/rehabilitation.
Okay,
And I use that for a reason, because in
yeah,
historic preservation, it's either restoration, rehabilitation, or preservation. Those are the three terms that are used. So I really think we should put like
okay,
conservation/rehabilitation in there. That's the only comments I have.
Or just preservation.
Or just preservation,
Well,
because you got
preservation,
conservation.
I know, but preservation has a very specific meaning in the historic preservation world.
and in the CPA world, what's the? Historic, yeah, they say rehabilitate or restore. So they use the verb rehabilitate, which I hate that word.
I know.
But I suppose we should do it more.
I think it's the most of preservation, rehabilitation, or restoration. I think rehabilitate is the most accurate description based on the historic preservation
Okay.
world and CPC from what you just read.
Yeah, okay, I'll change that. Yeah, and I missed a period at the end of the sentence in the blue box. Adopted CPA.
And then just one more comment, which is under the last one, creation of tennis courts at the high school.
Mhm.
There's nothing under CPC request, it's under bonded. Is that like, I don't quite understand if there's nothing
Yeah.
under CPC request.
Maybe I should put that instead of other town funds, I'll put that under CP, that was, because they gave us the money for the overlay. And so that really went into CPA. You know,
Yeah, I don't know what I mean, you know the answer better than me, but since it looks funny that
It
there's
does look
nothing under
funny.
CPA
I think what I'll do
request.
is move the 400 under CPA request. And then we bonded, well. Actually, the whole thing should be under CPA request and then bonded, keep the 334, but will people think that that's double? I could just take it out,
Or you can make an asterisk and say C bonded or something.
you know.
I don't know, something.
Yeah, I didn't even know, like, the leverage from, and people understand what that means. I didn't have enough room.
I was gonna
to,
say,
you know,
you're fighting,
I'm fighting the space.
they can ask a question. Like, where did the 52,000 come from the Houghton?
That came from the historical society, so,
7,000, yeah.
yeah, 7,000 was a grant that Amy got.
But I mean, I think that's really good that you included that because it shows.
Right.
Yeah, the
Other sources.
other sources. We'll see who reads the town report when they call and say, what does that mean? So what I'll do is I'll put under CPA request for tennis courts, I'll put 734. And then I can say, amount, or could I do it as a percentage of bonded of?
Whatever you want to do.
Well, so, but the other town, yeah,
That
this
was,
is, because, okay, so there was a request, but 400 is coming from.
So
the
the
old-
the other thing you could
Yeah.
do is put the whatever it is, 700 under CPA request.
Yeah.
And just have an asterisk and have a footnote to the table
Oh, okay.
saying 334 bonded and 400 other
With
town
blended
funds.
funds, or,
Yeah.
yeah, just call it
Just
that.
because no other category has bonded or other town
No,
funds, so
okay,
just be a footnote.
okay. Okay,
But, you know, it's tough because, you know, if you add the 734 under the CPK request, that number goes up by 734.
yeah. I'd have to-
Oh.
And
I'd
then,
have to
and then
check
you,
the-
I don't
Oh.
think you should
You're
put
right.
those other two numbers in that bottom line.
At all,
Cause
So
that
then
sort of becomes
you're right.
cumulative and it's
Yeah.
more than,
No, we'll let Carolyn.
where you just put an asterisk there and an asterisk
Can
there.
you just label other town funds, change that label to blended funds?
blended funds. Maybe flip the columns so that
Yeah.
it's.
Yeah.
What can we call it, CPA? Fund requests, and then CPA blended funds.
So you'd saying you'd have blank under CPA request, but you'd have,
No, I'd have
Oh.
like.
You would have to add the 734 into that.
Yeah, 734 there. and
But
then-
under,
that miss-
under the bottom line for the bonded, you could keep the two non-bold-faced lines, but maybe just put an asterisk in each of those boxes and or a footnote, and then do a footnote. You have like one or two lines underneath.
I know, remember to squish it into a little font. So if I put 734 under CPA request, because they did request that from us.
Yeah.
And then leave the other two out and then just put an asterisk.
Yeah,
and
maybe
put
you
the
just
thing at
take
the
out
bottom,
those other
take,
two.
and then I can make it a little
bars.
bit bigger. Okay.
Right, then you have to redo the totals, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
all right. And are we supposed to vote on the annual report? I mean, some of them, we did at the historical commission, didn't we?
Oh, I think we did, because someone said, maybe someone did tell me if we had a vote or something. I don't remember.
You
I
want
think
to-
it's, I was gonna say, I think it certainly helps, but I don't think it's required, but yeah, it'd be good.
Okay,
Speaking
Yeah.
of that cemetery report.
yeah. Little retroactive. So does someone want to make a motion with the amendments, and I'll send it out before.
Yeah, I move that we accept the annual report with them and the amendments we've discussed. Or amendments or
Amendments.
alterations.
Yeah.
or whatever.
I second it.
Okay, Jerry,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes,
Linda,
Yes.
Carol's a yes, Jeff,
yes.
Bartlett,
Yes.
and Andrew.
Yes.
Great, all right, thank you, and I'll send it out. I'll let Lisa know that we're gonna resubmit. Thank you, Linda, for bringing that up. Minutes, I sent out many minutes. Let me get us caught up. We've got many more. The first set was July 19th of 2023. Yeah. We still have some old ones to do.
There's between that meeting and the joint meeting with the Select and Finance Committee and all this talk about 2% or 3%, none of which
Right.
I just brought back. It just
Yeah,
brought back when I
yeah.
went through the minutes. And then the only other comment I had, it was a couple of typos, but it's not worth mentioning, but the, Linda, when Diane was asking for the,
8,000.
8,000, you had asked her to get maybe look into digitization.
Yeah, she never got back to us.
Okay,
Oh, one thing with digitization, for CPA, because we looked at it, a historical society, if you're preserving records, you can use CPA funds, but if you're only doing a project to make them more accessible, it's not CPA related.
okay. So
So
maybe that.
you might not have been able to.
Oh, so you can't,
Yeah.
you're saying you can't use CPA's funds to digitize?
Unless you're only gonna digitize them to save them,
I see what you're saying.
because like we wanted to digitize some town
make
records,
them
but they're
accessible.
okay, but we just wanted to make them more accessible, and it's not a, we
Okay,
were all excited.
yeah. Oh, well, okay.
Then we became more
Good to know.
excited.
I would think
don't have
though-
to-
Oh, I'm sorry. I would think though, by digitizing them, you are preserving them because if something happens
you're
to
right.
those
I
records.
know.
You're
I know,
right.
it would be interesting to go through the database and see, if other
Yes.
towns have done
I
that.
think we should do that,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't have any comments on the July 19th
Mhm.
minutes.
Do you have them on others?
I do, just a few, but why don't we can just do this one
Well,
first.
then can we just do, like, vote them all at once?
Yeah, but maybe
Well,
other
I
people have
wasn't-
comments.
On
You-
the committee on this, for the July or the August ones. so I
Right.
can't vote.
Okay.
Does anyone have comments on the July 19th minutes?
And I didn't have comments on any of them.
Bartlett?
No.
No. Andrew? No.
Nope, I think they look good.
So you want to go through all of them? I see what you're saying. All
Well,
right,
except for
Vote
the,
on them all.
yeah, because because Jerry can't vote, because
Right, right, right.
been on the
okay, so
committee.
should we keep going? Is that
Do
what you're
do
saying?
July 19th and August 22nd.
All right,
And we accept the minutes.
So wait,
of-
Linda might have some.
August 22nd. Let me
Yeah.
see this. Oh, let's see. I don't- No, I don't have any comments on that either.
Okay, so we can do July 19th and August 22nd.
And move we accept the minutes from those dates.
A second.
Sam?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Carolyn's a yes, Jeff?
Yes.
Bartlett?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
And Jerry will be an abstention. Okay, thank you. September 18th.
That's referring to.
Yeah, I have
Diane Bird.
no comments on that.
Okay,
Anyone else?
I'm not here for that one.
no, that's okay. You can vote if you weren't here, but I don't think you can vote if you weren't part of the committee. 10/18. I didn't really read these.
I don't have anything on that.
Okay.
Does anyone else?
November 15th.
Anyway. Oh, I don't know, is it just me? For November 15th, the first item is in bold. And bold itself
Oh.
says Andrew Smarko made a motion to approve.
You know what?
But what is it? What's the
No,
project?
I copied that over in case I needed it.
Oh.
Delete that.
Oh, that gets
Yeah,
deleted, that
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's-
so it just starts with news mail.
That's so I have the format without
Okay.
having to. Yeah,
All right, in that
good,
case, I have
good.
no comments.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
And then January 17th of this year. Actually, like up to date on that.
I guess I had a couple of questions on this. So, under, I don't know what page, and page, I don't know, somewhere just above projects in the pipeline, it says that Linda's time will look into whether this can flow through the CPA Kennis Lynch funds. I totally forgot that I said that, so I haven't checked it out. So I guess I will, but I may have to.
Oh, look, I mean, I'm gonna talk to Michelle
oh,
on
yeah,
Monday, so I've got that on my
Good,
list, yeah.
Because I
okay.
will probably have to tap into that money either at the beginning of next month or the
Yeah.
next month
It's
after
in
that.
it's in the town.
Yes.
It's just whether it goes
Right,
through us,
exactly.
yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
all right. And then where it says, let's see, Transportation Advisory Group may be coming to fall town meeting for funding for signage on bike trails. We don't even have bike trails yet,
Well,
right?
they're creating. them.
Yeah,
But-
they're-
But I don't think they should come for funding for signage if there's no bike
He
trails.
said that I talked to him informally, he said that the Maynard person who was sort of going to be putting in doing all the signage stuff has a medical problem, and so it may not be happening anyway.
And is it really a bike trail or just a bike?
It's not a bike trail,
It's a
it's
route.
literally signage,
Signage along
Signage.
the roads.
yes.
See, that's,
It's,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
establishing, like a
Some stuff.
regional wide, bike trails that are then sort of marketed, through this signage.
all right, so I
We
get,
have bike routes already.
Like,
so bike routes, not
Yeah.
bike trails, I would say.
not trails, no.
And I guess-
It's on roads.
A related comment I just thought of is, we don't have it, do we really have bike trails and, bike routes in Littleton?
Yeah.
Well, we may now, that this is a regional thing called the Neshoba Regional Greenway.
Oh.
And it's meant to connect, routes through a whole, all of our surrounding communities.
So I guess what I was thinking of is like marking off an area
No,
where
no.
bikes
This is
go.
literally a sign.
Oh,
like
okay,
a-
all right,
Yeah, well, I mean, Gary will explain it. I mean, but the signage hasn't been determined because this person who's
Yeah.
gonna be doing that is not able.
Yeah,
to.
okay, all
And
right.
I think it's less than $10,000 that was looking,
How much?
But the areas,
less than $10,000.
the areas where we do have like the lines, they just stop. I mean, so it's not like a continuous
Yeah,
route.
no, there's no, it was a big, when we were doing the recreation plan, it's a big item. And, there, actually what came up was the only way that we can really have safe biking in Littleton is to reduce the speed on our roads. Because we really do not have the physical, the physical distance that we need to, but anyway, but this is mainly pointing people toward getting around the whole.
All right. Doesn't thrill me, but all right. Then the last thing I have to say is, town has directed 2 park and rec projects, CPA, resurfacing of basketball courts there in King Street, and a survey for new field creation. Are we allowed to pay, is CPC allowed to pay for a survey for new field creation?
I don't know. So that's the one that they're tabling.
Oh, they're tabling it anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, that was what was said in the
It
minutes,
was
so
more
it
like
doesn't
a
matter.
planning,
Yeah,
master plan,
Hmm.
to figure out what fields
Yeah.
were viable and.
right?
Yeah, and where.
I think that they totally off topic, but I think that they could ultimately, because you can do inventories and just like alumni field. I believe that the engineering for that went through CPC and the planning. And we've
And the
done
te-
inventories.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
and the tennis courts, didn't they do the assessment when they were gonna tear these tennis courts down? They were trying to figure out where to put them. We did some kind of engineering for that.
Okay.
All right, so I did change it to say it's for signage to establish bike routes via the Neshoba Regional
And,
Greenway.
and until there's a request.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm just-
right, doesn't matter.
I'm just
the minutes.
flagging it. I mean, I'm trying to get him interested in, using this resource.
Mm.
I mean, to some degree, I think we all need to like invite people to apply,
Yeah.
probably because they otherwise might not do it.
Mhm. Okay, so we have 4 sets of minutes then with minor edits. Motion?
I move to accept the minutes,
It's September 18th, October 18th, November 15th, and January 17th.
that.
That,
As amended.
as amended, yes.
I second it.
Jerry,
Yes.
Sam, Linda.
Yes.
Carol's a yes, Deb,
Yes.
Bartlett,
Yes.
Andrew.
Yes.
Great. Oh, phew, okay, this town clerk will be happy about that. Anything else before we?
The fellow that was
We're
here,
being recorded.
yeah, no, he, one of his, at the public workshop was, he said, he has gone to look at meeting minutes and he was going, there's a lot of minutes that are missing.
Yeah,
And I'm going, well, we are a citizen board. I mean, not specifically the CPC.
no, there's a lot,
Lots of
yeah.
boards that
yeah,
probably don't have
yeah,
minutes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know the town clerk sent out to all the
Yeah.
chairs their list.
Mm.
So try to keep them better. All right. Oh, the next meeting, March 20th, I can't be here. I'm not even sure that I can join remotely. But it's gonna be a busy one. There's gonna be the Affordable Housing Trust will be here, Clean Lakes, although we've heard the presentation, so they shouldn't have to do too much more. I don't know if Alicia will be here for the basketball courts. I don't know if anyone else will pop up in the meantime. You'll have a couple. I think for the most part, all the eligibilities are done. It's just voting in the projects. We did the allocations tonight, so that's good.
Is Andrew Smartber gonna chair it? Is that true or no?
Yeah, Andrew, we'll have
Um,
to see if you're gonna be here or not.
Yeah, so
yeah.
March 20th, I should be able to.
March 20th, yeah,
Okay.
20, right?
Yeah, Yeah, so I can put the agenda together, make sure someone gets it, and if I, I get some notes from Michelle when I talk to her on Monday, I'll just pass those out to everybody. But I apologize and one of those things. Anything else?
I just want to confirm that I'm supposed to bring my application for eligibility for the LRAP and those ongoing programs.
Yeah, I would bring the eligibility on your application for funding, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
And we also should have your annual report.
yeah,
Yeah, we need that too. The best motion of all.
Motion.
I seconded.
Jerry,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Linda.
Yes.
Carolyn, Jeff,
Yes.
Violet,
yes.
Andrew.
Yes.
Yes. All right, Andrew, you can go back to your palm trees.
Palm trees.
Oh,
If
I saw
only.
that. Is that where?
Is
Andrew
that where you are, or is that just a picture?
No, I would love to be there right now. That was in
Yeah.
Miami back in December. So
Uh-huh.
if I was among them right now, that would be great.
Yeah. All right, okay.
Good night, everyone.
I saw that on Carolyn's screen when the Green Lakes people were talking, like, what was that?
That looks great.
I'm going to end our recording.
That's the like with no public access.